Alright everybody, welcome back. Continuing with the AR-15 barrel series, we have a 14.5-inch barrel from Hodge Defense that was manufactured by FN. There seems to be quite a bit of mystique and lore around the internet about barrels from Hodge Defense. It seems to mainly be centered around the chamber features, the barrel steel, as well as the finishing and inspection process, and probably a few other things. Anyway, I'm not going to get into all that, but feel free to drop some facts about these barrels in the comment section. I'm just here to take a peek at it and see how well I can shoot it. So, let's get started. Today's video sponsor is Jack Wolf Knives. Jack Wolf Knives is based right here in Phoenix, Arizona. They offer a variety of high-quality, everyday carry pocket knives. They're best known for taking timeless knife designs and producing them with modern materials and methods. Whether out in the field or at a nice dinner, Jack Wolf has the option for you. So, if you're looking for an heirloom quality knife to add to your collection, check out Jack Wolf Knives on the web or Instagram. Available for purchase at their authorized dealers worldwide. And don't forget to visit his booth at CanCon 2025 on April 10th to 12th at the Ben Avery range in Phoenix. The barrel was purchased in December of 2020 and was loaned to me by an anonymous subscriber and came to me in brand new, never fired condition. The barrel is made by FN to custom specifications from Hodge. I'm not entirely sure what all Hodge does differently with these barrels, so feel free to fill in the gaps for me in the comments section. Anyway, it's 14.5 inches and has a 5.56 NATO chamber, or at least it's based on one, 1-to-7 twist, and mid-length gas. It's cold hammer forged from FN's proprietary barrel steel. I believe it's the same steel used in the M249 barrels, but feel free to correct me on that. The bore is chrome lined with 6-groove rifling, and the exterior has a matte black phosphate finish. The gas block journal is 750 thousandths and does not have a set screw dimple, and I measured the gas port at 76 thousandths, which is in the typical range for a 14.5 mid. I believe Hodge has a similar spec barrel with smaller gas ports for better compatibility with suppressors. Again, if you know something I don't, feel free to put that in the comments. Anyway, the barrel comes in at around 1.5 pounds, which I would say puts us somewhere between a lightweight and midweight barrel. And it has a rather unique contour that's basically tapered from the chamber to the muzzle. The threads are the AR-15 standard 1/2x28, and the chamfer on the crown looks pretty nice. Moving back to the barrel extension, the feed ramps are also chamfered, which is a nice detail that I always like to see. And with that, we will head to the bench and see what we can see. Alright, we will start off with the throat erosion gauge to get a baseline. And it looks like the Hodge is coming in at a little past a 1 on this gauge. Next, we have a 5.56 chamber and throat gauge, and the Hodge passes, meaning that the throat is at least at a min spec for a 5.56 narrow chamber. And next, we'll check the headspace with a new stripped bolt from JP and a Forster 5.56 NATO minimum headspace gauge, and the Hodge passes. Moving on to the 223 no-go gauge, and the bolt does not close, meaning that the barrel has a headspace closer to the minimum side of the range for a 5.56 nano chamber. And here are some of the external barrel measurements. The barrel extension is on the larger side of things, coming in at near the top of the chart, and this should make for a tight fit with the upper receiver. And the gas block journal is also very nicely sized at only 2/10 under, which makes for a very snug fit with the gas block. And we have some exciting news. Tesla provided me with a new bore scope for use on the channel. This is our fold and focus model, which should increase the image quality compared to the older model that I was using. I also have an affiliate code with them, PM2025, which will save you 10% on the Teslong.com website. And this should give you a little bit better price than what you'll find on Amazon, and will also give me a little bit of a kickback. Anyway, we're going to start off with some of the older footage with my old bore scope. This was taken before I fired the barrel, so this is in the exact condition the barrel was when it was loaned to me. We'll just take a quick peek at the throat area as we make our way around. You can see that there is a pretty healthy layer of corrosion inhibitor or something on the inside of the bore. And here's a quick look at the gas port, which has quite a few burrs on it, so not the cleanest gas port that I've seen. Okay, and here's the new bore scope, which makes it a lot easier to focus and get better footage. And this footage was taken after I had shot the barrel and cleaned it up a bit. Anyway, here's a look at the chamber walls with the chrome lining. And here's a little bit farther up the chamber, right before the shoulder. And there looks to be some machining lines in this area. And here's the neck. We'll take a quick look around here. Nothing looks out of place to me, but you guys can let me know if you see something. There are a few pieces of cotton and some other stuff in there, so don't worry about that stuff. Anyway, I don't see any real surprises in the neck area. And working our way up to the throat, we have a few things to look at here. First, there looks to be a bit of unevenness at the start of the throat. The rifling starts in different places. And if we look at the right edges of the rifling, to my eyes it looks to be a bit jagged or something. I can't exactly tell what's going on there, but it looks a little bit out of the ordinary. Also, I will mention that this barrel has a chamber that was cut with a reamer. It wasn't hammer forged, which is fine. I'm not saying that one is better than the other, but during the making of this video, I had to do a little bit of digging to figure out if this chamber was cut or forged. Anyway, this barrel has a cut chamber, but according to an email I received from the support department at Hodge, they are currently working on a variant that will have a forged chamber. And for those of you who are curious, here's a side-by-side of the throat area with a Geisley barrel and a Hodge. Again, the throat of the Hodge was cut with a reamer, and the Geisley was hammer forged. Anyway, let's keep moving forward. Here's a closer look at the rifling a little bit farther down the barrel, and the rifling looks well formed and consistent. Everything looks nice with no obvious issues that I see. So we will move a little bit farther down and take a look at the gas port. Alright, and here is the gas port, not the cleanest looking hole I've seen. Again, this is after about 100 rounds or so. It looks a little bit rough around the edges, but at least the burrs got knocked off. And here's a peek at the crown. Nothing catches my eyes as being out of place here. It looks nice and consistent with a clean cut. So yeah, it looks fine. Next, we'll go over the shooting setup and controls, and then we'll head to the range. The barrel was fit into an up receiver. After greasing the threads, the barrel nut was torqued to 40 foot-pounds. The barrel was cleaned prior to this range trip. A free float handguard was used. No muzzle device was attached to prevent possible interference. A 3-inch bag rider with short mounting screws is used to fit the front rest. An A5 receiver extension is installed with an A5-0 buffer and Spring-Co green spring. The trigger is a Geisley Super Dynamic 3-gun trigger. A few rounds were fired prior to shooting the first group to foul the bore and zero the scope. The scope is a Vortex Viper 6.5 to 20 by 44. Scope ring torque was confirmed at 15 inch-pounds. Magnification is set at 20, and parallax was set and confirmed with a head nod test. I'll be using two chronographs today. The first is an optical chronograph, the Pro Chrono DLX, which will be placed 30 feet from the muzzle to avoid interfering with the second chronograph, which is the Garmin Zero C1 Pro, which was generously provided to the channel by the fine people at the Ballistic X app. A Mantis X10 Elite is mounted to the front of the handguard. This is an accelerometer that will grade each shot based on how steady the rifle was at the moment of firing, and the groups will be measured by the Ballistic X app. I'll be shooting 30 shots per group. All 30 shots will be fired consecutively over a period of about 4 minutes. This will help me to determine how well this barrel will perform with any match or practical type setting where the barrel may get some heat into it. The barrel will be cooled with a chamber chiller and leaf blower between each group to make the comparison between different ammo types as even as possible. All groups will be fired at 100 yards. The point of aim is a small circle at the bottom of the target, with the point of impact set a few inches above to preserve the aiming point. The rifle will be shot from the prone with a front rest and rear bag. Wind will be monitored with a ribbon. Each group will take about 4 minutes to shoot and will be edited down to about 15 seconds. I'll be shooting 3 groups today. First, we'll start with IMI 62 grain M855. Next, we'll move up to Frontier 223 68 grain BTHPs. And last, I'll finish up with PMC X-Tech Match 77 grain OTMs. Alright, let's do it. Okay, starting things off with some inexpensive FMJ tier ammo. I don't think anyone buys this ammo expecting it to group the best, but the results are usually pretty interesting. Anyway, the shooting experience for this barrel was fantastic. The gassing felt absolutely perfect, recoil was minimal, and the ejection pattern looked pretty good. And with this setup, everything just felt super smooth. On my end, the shooting felt fine. Wind was minimal, like it always is. So, we will finish up the group and then take a closer look. Okay, so here's a look at the chronograph and Mantis data. There are no significant differences between the DLX and the Garmin chronographs, so I'll just be going over the Garmin data. And with the Mantis, we had an average rifle stability score of 99.5, which is right around my normal score. Shot 29 was the lowest score on the Mantis with a score of 98.7, so we'll take a peek at that later on. Moving on to the velocity overview, the IMI 62 grain M855 had an advertised velocity of 3020 feet per second out of a 20-inch barrel, and the Hodge got 2,828 feet per second, which seems reasonable for a 14.5-inch barrel, and that gives us about 1,100 foot-pounds of energy, which is a bit on the warmer side of things, and the velocity SD was a little bit high at 30 feet per second. Nothing looks to be out of place with this group. Things look pretty evenly distributed, although it is a little bit taller than it is wide. And here's a closer look at things. We ended up with a group size of 2.393 MOA, with a mean radius of 0.662 MOA. The worst shot, according to the Mantis, was shot 29, which ended up pretty close to the center. So I'm not worried about that one. And nothing else seems horribly out of place, so we'll keep moving forward. If we break the 30-shot group down into 6 5-shot groups, the average 5-shot group size was 1.3 MOA, and the average 10-shot group size was 1.7 MOA. Real quick, here's a brief intro to the A-ZED Score for those of you who are new here. So A-ZED is an acronym that stands for A-Zone Equivalence Distance. It is based on the mean radius, and after they plug in the numbers into the formula, we end up with a maximum range where the group could still fit into a USPSA A-zone. For me, this just helps my simple brain put things into a more practical context instead of looking at raw mean radius numbers. Anyway, moving along. Since I love charts so much, I made a new one. Here is the low tier ammo leaderboard, and the Hodge is starting out with a bang, coming in at the top of the chart with an A-ZED score of 213 yards, just barely edging out the Ballistic Advantage that had a A-ZED score of 210 yards, so the Hodge is off to a good start. Next, let's see what it can do with some mid-tier ammo. Alright, bumping things up to a mid-tier ammo with the Frontier 68 grain BTHPs. We'll see what the results look like for this load. Again, the shooting experience was great with minimal recoil and it felt very smooth. The ejection pattern also looked good between 3 and 330. Wind looked fine, shooting felt fine on my end. I didn't have any significant concerns about any of the shots. And as you can see, things look pretty good with this group. So, we will finish up the group and then take a closer look. Okay, so here's a look at the chronograph and mantis data. The chronos didn't have any significant disagreement, which is nice. The mantis didn't pick up 2 shots, which happens sometimes, and the lowest score on the mantis was 99.0 on shot 1, which I'm fine with, so nothing to worry about there. Moving on to the velocity overview. The Frontier 223 68 grain BTHPs have an advertised velocity of 2960 out of a 24-inch barrel, and the 14.5-inch Hodge averaged 2557, which results in 987 foot-pounds of energy, which makes this load about middle of the road or so. And the velocity SD was pretty decent at 21 feet per second. Alright, so we have one big hole with a few shots escaping the main group, so we'll look a little closer at those. But before we do, I'll go over a question that I'm sure some of you have, which is how do I know where the shots landed when the group ended up in one big hole? So, in short, the target camera makes things pretty easy most of the time. And then on top of that, I can do a little bit more editing and overlay the completed group on top of the developing group. And most of the time this works good enough. With this group, there were still 2 shots that I basically had to take an educated guess on where they landed. It was shots 22 and 23. Before this group, for all the rest of the barrels, I think I had a total of 1 or 2 shots where I had to take a guess. So for me, it seems to be fairly rare when a bullet hole goes through another bullet hole and there's absolutely no evidence on the target cam. There are several potential solutions for this issue. I could use heavier weight paper that would tear less, which I'll probably do. I could use an electronic target, but they are expensive and I would have to take the time to set it up and tear it down. Or I could use multiple points of aim and overlay the targets on top of each other to get an aggregate. But I think the visual of 30 shots on one target looks better, and there are also a few other reasons why I don't really want to do that. But in short, what I'm doing isn't perfect, but it worked well for me. I think that the margin of error is low enough for what I'm doing that it's unlikely to have a significant impact on the overall results. So every placement of every bullet isn't going to be absolutely perfect, but I think the end result is still meaningful. Anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments, and let's get back to it. Okay, we had a group size of 2.098 MOA with a mean radius of 0.477 MOA, and then we'll take a quick look at shots 1 and 29 since they're a little bit farther outside the group. Shot 1 had a rifle stability score of 99.0 and a velocity that was 13 feet per second higher than average, and shot 29 had a rifle stability score of 99.7 with a velocity that was 20 feet per second higher than average. So nothing too out of the ordinary for either of those, and both of those shots felt fine on my end, so they're staying in the group. Breaking the 30-shot group down into 6 5-shot groups, the average 5-shot group size was 1.1 MOA, and the average 10-shot group size was 1.5 MOA. And here is the mid-tier ammo leaderboard, and the Hodge is once again on top, this time by a pretty decent amount. The A-ZED Score was 54 yards better than the second place White Oak Armament barrel, so things are still going really well for the Hodge. And let's see how it does with this last group. Okay, so we have another mid-tier ammo with the PMC X-Tech match, and I know you guys are going to absolutely light me up in the comments section for not shooting a premium ammo through this barrel, but bear with me, I'll address that in a minute. Anyway, the shooting experience was excellent with this load. This load seems to be a little bit weaker, so ejection was around 4 o'clock. Wind continued to be minimal. All the shots felt fine on my end, so we will finish up the group and then take a closer look. Okay, so I didn't have any premium tier ammo on hand at the time, so this was the best that I could do. But if you guys really want to, I could probably facilitate a part 2 or something with some premium tier ammo. So if you think that's a good idea, let me know in the comments what ammo you think I should use to this barrel, and I'll do my best. Okay, let's get back to it. Once again, there were no significant disagreements between the chronos, and we had 2 shots with the rifle stability scores in the 98s, so we'll check in on those. It was shots number 2 and 30. And moving on to the velocity overview, the PMC X-Tech match has an advertised velocity of 2790 out of a 20-inch barrel, and the Hodge got an average of 2315, which results in 916 foot-pounds of energy, which is a little bit on the lighter side, and it even felt a bit light when I was shooting it, which made for an even less recoil, which was nice. Anyway, the SD was a little bit high at 33 feet per second, and the group looks pretty well evenly distributed. Nothing looks obviously out of place, and the height and width are about even. And we ended up with a group size of 1.889 MOA with a mean radius of 0.556 MOA. And we'll take a look at those 2 shots we noted earlier. Shot number 2 ended up a little bit low, but still close enough to the center. And shot 30 was a little bit high, but nothing I'm really worried about. Moving on to the 5-shot group breakdowns, this group had a 5-shot group average of 1.4 MOA and an average 10-shot group size of 1.6 MOA. And once again, compared to the other barrel shooting mid-tier ammo, the Hodge continues to stay on top, but not as much as with the Frontier. It only beat out the White Oak Armament barrel by 14 yards this time, but 3 out of 3 first place finishes, that's pretty good. Okay, let's take a look at the overall results for the Hodge. Okay, so the best group was with the Frontier 68 grain BTHPs with an A-ZED score of 296 yards, followed by the PMC Exact Match, a decent amount behind at 254 yards, and the worst group was with the Hodge was with the IMI M855 with an A-ZED score of 213 yards. Okay, so here is the leaderboard that shows the best group shot by each barrel. For you guys that have been here before, this is the normal leaderboard. And yes, the Hodge is at a bit of a handicap here due to my ammo selection. But even so, it still ended up with a pretty solid 4th place. And as far as combat or duty-oriented barrels, it beats the Geisley and Daniel Defense barrels, so it did pretty good. Here is a side-by-side with the best group, the Hodge, versus the current champ, which is the Sons of Liberty Gunworks SPR barrel. So this is an A-ZED score of 296 with the Hodge versus 472 with the Sons SPR. Alright, so again, let me know if you guys want to see a follow-up video with the Hodge. What ammo would you like me to see shoot through it? Also, while you're down there, let me know if you like the new ammo tier leaderboards. I think they're helpful, and I think they add a little bit more context to things, but let me know what you think. And that'll do it for today. And make sure you subscribe because I have a lot more good stuff on the way, and I'll see you next time. Later.